Hello everyone, welcome back to Just My Stupid Opinion, today on the 4th of May, 2019. So it's been a while since I've put out an actual episode of Just My Stupid Opinion, so I wanted to discuss a few things today. The first thing I wanted to talk about was a Rebel Media video that ended up coming out recently, and I just have some criticisms on that. Then we're going to be discussing National Post, an article that came out that was about Michelle Rempel and immigration in general. We're going to get into that. And then we're going to be discussing what ended up happening with Sheila Copps, who has been a longtime staunch defender of the Trudeau Liberals, and what she ended up doing on Twitter. So we're going to get into all that today, but I want to start off with the Rebel Media video. So this Rebel Media video, it is in relation to the stage hate crime that ended up happening in Winnipeg over the last week or so. And for those who don't know, it was said that there was a swastika that was spray painted on the walls of the Bearmax Cafe and Bistro in Winnipeg. And the shop owners, it's a family, they're Jewish, so it was seen as one of the most brazen anti-Semitic attacks in all of Winnipeg. And then it turns out that it was a hoax. It was committed by this family, and that they have actually been arrested for misdemeanor charges and for staging this hoax. Now, hoaxes are nothing new here in Canada when it comes to hate crimes. We've seen many of them in the past. This could be seen, probably one of the biggest ones that's happened in recent years had to be the hijab cutting hoax that ended up happening early in 2018. And a lot of these hate crimes end up getting staged by people from the community. If it's a hate crime against a black person, then it'll be someone from the black community. If it's Muslims, then it'll be from the Muslim community. And Jewish community, it's all the same. Probably, again, another really big one that people are more familiar with probably is what ended up happening with Jussie Smollett, about how he claimed he was attacked by Trump supporters in the middle of the night, and then it turns out that not only did it never happen, but the people who helped him stage it were also black. So this has happened time and time again, and this is another example of this situation. So I want to get into this video here, and we're going to discuss a few things, the way that Rebel Media presents it. Let's see here. Yeah, so this video ended up coming out on May 1st, and it was by Sheila Gunn Reid of Gunshots is the name of her show. And as we can see here, it's called Proof. Antifa and Media Lied About Rebel Reporter Harassing Female Journalist. Now, this part of is pretty self-explanatory what the video is about. And it's true, actually. It's very true that the mainstream media did lie in order to slander this Rebel Media journalist. But what Rebel Media was doing there, and what Sheila Gunn Reid was trying to do, to me was it was something that needs to be called out. So let's get into the video.
Let me tell you what started this whole mess. My Rebel colleague, Cian Bexty, is now a roving, traveling journalist for us. And about a week ago, there was what initially was reported as a hate crime at a Jewish cafe in Winnipeg. But as it turns out, now the Jewish owners of the cafe are being charged with faking that hate crime against themselves. So we deployed Cian to Winnipeg to get the other side of the story. And the side of the story from the Jewish community wronged by these hoaxers. And incidentally, while he was there, noted anti-Semite and Women's March organizer Linda Sarsour also came to Winnipeg to give a talk. What a strange coincidence. Anyway, Cian went down to the protest organized by the Jewish community against Linda Sarsour to hear and report their concerns. But before Cian ever got on the ground in Winnipeg, Antifa were already promising to assault him and run him out of town. Now let's get to the meat of the hoax against my friend Cian Bexty. first, let's take a look at this video being passed around by a left-wing Antifa activist and sometime journalist named Emily Leadham. Leadham tweeted a video taken at the Sarsour protest saying, "Cian Bexty from the rebel media and other local men cornering me while asking inflammatory questions to get an emotional response. This is how the rebel media works."
All right, so we've pretty much seen all the relevant information in the video here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back and I'm going to go over the parts that I had a problem with because there were certain things that she ended up saying, that Sheila Gunn Reid ended up saying, that I thought were too defensive. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. It's that this is the same. If this hate crime was committed by any other group of people, they would not be as generous as they were to both the owner, well, not so much the owner, but the Jewish community. So let's get into what we're talking about.
Because it doesn't fit their preconceived notions of the rebel and the people who work for us here at the rebel. Let me tell you what started this whole mess. My rebel colleague, Cian Bexty, is now a roving, traveling journalist for us. And about a week ago, there was what initially was reported as a hate crime at a Jewish cafe in Winnipeg. But as it turns out, now the Jewish owners of the cafe are being charged with faking that hate crime against themselves. So we deployed Cian to Winnipeg to get the other side of the story. And the side of the
So this is the first part that I have a problem with, is that there is no other side to this story. The story is that they faked a hate crime against them and tried to paint Canada and Canadians as some sort of white supremacist, racist, bigoted country. Now, this is something that we've called out much of the left wing of politics for this exact reason, that they're trying to paint an image of Canada that does not exist. But when she says this, and she says that she's trying to get the other side of the story, it makes it seem as if there's something more here that's going on, which is already giving, to my opinion, the benefit of the doubt to the people who faked this hate crime. But there's more that she says that I have a problem with.
Story from the Jewish community wronged by these hoaxers, and incidentally, while he was there...
So she says they sent them there in order to figure out the people of the Jewish community who've been wronged by these hoaxers. Can you imagine that if this was a Muslim who faked a hate crime, if this was a black person, a Latino person, or even just somebody on the left? They wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt and say that it was other members of the Muslim community or black community or of left-wing politics who have been wronged by this. But the fact that these are Jewish individuals, now the Jewish community is the one who have been wronged by this. No, it is in fact the white community who is wronged by this because they try to make it seem as if there's a blatant problem in Winnipeg with white supremacists when there clearly isn't. And this is something that has been a criticism of rebel media for some time, that they are the first or maybe the last line defense of Zionism in Canada. And this seems to be that they're living up to this expectation. I mean, one thing about Ezra Levant, who runs the Rebel, is that I think it was in Canada Day of 2018. It may have been Canada Day of 2017, but I'm pretty sure it was this past Canada Day. He ended up on Twitter talking more about Israel than he did about Canada. He put out, his Happy Canada Day tweet, blah, 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 and then proceeded to discuss Israel problems and Israel in general. There was maybe one or two tweets about Canada and then a handful of tweets that were about Israel. Well, that is not the time to be talking about Israel. It is the celebration of the birth of our nation. That is something big for every single one of us, especially if you're a Canadian patriot. So this is just the Rebel, it seems to me, that living up to defending Zionists and the Jewish community and giving them the benefit of the doubt when they wouldn't do that for other communities. In fact, this is something that they'll accuse the mainstream media of doing, and now they're caught doing it too. Now they're just a news source too, so despite the fact they like to take shots at the mainstream media and do expose a lot of their lies, that doesn't mean that they're not guilty of doing the same thing. Now, there's something else I want to show you in here. I got it right here. And actually you can kind of see it here at the bottom right, but hold on.
But before Kian...
No, I'll have to go back. Hold on.
Linda Sarsour to hear and report their concerns.
So you can kind of see it. Bottom right-hand corner, they've all got their signs out there where they're protesting Linda Sarsour. Now, you're not going to find any defense of Linda Sarsour for me. I think she's one of the shittiest human beings to walk this planet. So you're not going to get any defense from me there. But what you're seeing down there is a woman holding a sign that says anti-Zionism equals anti-Semitism. Now, this is a defense that has been used time and time and time again by the Jewish community, that if you're anti-Zionist, that means you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Jewish people, you're anti-Israel, and that's not true. There's plenty of people who can have problems with the way that Israel conducts itself, with the way that Zionists conduct themselves, without having to resort to being that's because you hate Jewish people. It's a defense that is used a lot, and this is actually one thing. Some of the problems you may have with Israel in and of itself is that they do conduct themselves across borders in order to censor people from other nations from talking about them. We know for a fact that they censor Wikipedia, that they have a whole group of Israelis who have admitted to going through and scrubbing Wikipedia from anything that could look bad on Israel or Zionism. So that's one thing. And we also know that they are actually active on social media, whether that's Twitter, whether that's Facebook, in order to try and censor anybody who doesn't have a view that's pro-Israel. So these are some of the problems that we're having. We know that Israel has interfered in the past when it comes to U.S. politics. AIPAC is one of the biggest lobby groups in all of America, and this is why people accuse a lot of Zionists of having dual loyalty, is the fact that it seems like they have more affiliation with Israel than they do with their native country. Even somebody like a very prominent Zionist, like what's his name, who was on social media for a while, I think it was Jacob Wohl. He ended up putting out a tweet a while ago that's ended up saying that he has one thing that he looks for when he's voting for the president, and that is Israel. That's his only thing that he's concerned about. This is what some of my problems that I have with them, and this is something that the Rebel has been very guilty of. In fact, that video that we saw partial of, we go back and watch the whole thing, when it gets a little clearer as to what this Rebel reporter was saying, everything that he was talking about had to do with Israel and the Jewish people. And I don't mean like, don't you feel that they've been wronged or something? He kept going on to this reporter, quote unquote reporter, this member of Antifa, where he ended up pretty much saying that why are you so anti-Semitic? Do your parents know you're anti-Semitic? Why do you want Israel to be blown off the map? In fact, we'll go take a look at that, where he ends up saying that. And you can see that this whole thing, the whole reason that they were there was to defend the Jewish community and Israel itself. So here's partway through the video, we can start to hear what he's saying now. So let's get into it.
Your parents know that you're supporting an anti-Semite. Do you also hate white people? Do you also hate white people? Do your parents know that you're an anti-Semite? Do they? Is it easy to sleep at night knowing that you support someone who wants the entire state of Israel blown off the face of the earth?
Okay, so excuse me, he also brings up and says, do you hate white people? All right, then. We'll give them that. But the whole thing that he was there to defend was to defend the Jewish community from any sort of lashback they might receive for faking a crime like this. And this is not the first time that we've seen this sort of action from the Jewish community. This is something that has happened time and time again, whether that has to do with synagogues getting getting vandalized, other sort of swastikas that are sprayed on. It turns out that many of the people who do it are people who go to that synagogue. A couple times it's even turned out to be rabbis from that synagogue. So this is just rebel media standing up for Zionism, standing up for the Jewish community when they were the one that perpetrated a hate crime. Now, it was just these individuals who did that, but their whole segment was just meant to defend them. So that was some of my problem with the reporting that was done. They were right when they were talking about that their journalists ended up getting slandered. But they gave a benefit of the doubt they would never give to anybody else. They would never, like, even though he says there that, do you also hate white people? If this was attack was carried out, they would go on about white supremacism and trying to condemn it. If it was carried out by, again, the hijab hoax, they were very quick to tear down what ended up happening. I mean, I tore down that little girl and everything that ended up happening too. But they didn't give the benefit of the doubt like they did in this fake hate crimes with any of the other fake hate crimes that they have reported on. So to me, that's just one of my problems the main problem that I had with this video that they were talking about. I don't want to stick on this anymore, though. Let's go on to the next thing I want to talk about, which has to do with an article that ended up coming out from the National Post. I think it was May 2nd. I think it was May 2nd here. Let's take a look. Oh, it was, May 2nd. Okay, updated May 3rd. So what it ends up saying here is Tory immigrant critic Michelle Rempel aims for middle ground between Liberals and Bernier. They face challenges from the left and right. The Liberals hardened their position on asylum seekers, while the People's Party has capitalized on anti-immigration sentiment. So as it says here, conservative immigrant critic Michelle Rempel has told reporters on Thursday that she wants Canada's immigration system run seamlessly, quiet, and efficiently as she tried to build a narrative that the Tories will deliver a common-sense approach to immigration in the face of polarizing rhetoric from the left and the right. It is the latest example of the tightrope the Conservatives are trying to walk on immigration, criticizing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for what they see as a lax approach to irregular asylum seekers, while insisting they won't pander to those who want a hardline attitude to immigrants and refugees. Quote, as our leader Andrew Scheer has made clear, there is no home in the Conservative Party for anti-immigrant or racist sentiments, Rempel said. Anyone who harbors those beliefs does not have a political home in our movement. So if you're somebody that is concerned with the situation that we're facing when it comes to how many immigrants that we end up taking on, they've pretty much made this a synonym for racism. She just said that if you have anti-immigration or racist views, you have no part in the conservative movement. There's a real conversation that can be had in order to reduce the immigration numbers. Right now, we're taking in over 300,000 immigrants every single year, which means we're bringing in just about as many immigrants as Canadians are having children right now. There's something about 300,000 to 400,000 children born in Canada every single year. So we're taking in almost the same amount of numbers, and those numbers people want them to go up. Many people in politics want those numbers to be even higher, which we saw when we heard that they wanted to have 100 million Canadians by the year 2100. They wanted to increase to 1 million immigrants over 3 years. So we have practical reasons in order to have a conversation about this. There has to do with integration. Integration at those numbers is just not doable. Integration, when you're bringing this many people, just causes little ghettos, little slums, little air pockets where people just get together with their own community. They don't try and integrate, and because of it, you have a nation that has now been split. that has now been split among a bunch of different religious and racial lines. So this is why people have a problem with that. We can also talk about how it is a burden on the system. Many people who end up coming in are given taxpayers' money. We saw this with the 50,000 Syrian immigrants, refugees, I guess is what they called them, who came to Canada where they were given $50,000. This ended up happening again when it came to the border crossers that we've been facing over the last 2 or 3 years. So this is a lot of money that's going away. Right now we have them living up in 2 or 3 hotels over in the Toronto area, and that's a lot of money, to the point where the government was thinking about buying out the hotels themselves. And we also have seen how the Toronto shelters have been overburdened because of the people crossing over the border. That's not even taking in consideration our healthcare system, our already overburdened healthcare system, where many of these people are immediately going into. Many of them cross over because of our healthcare system, not because it's necessarily that great, but more because it's free, and that's what they want to take advantage of. Plenty of people have been talking about how they'll be in a hospital and they literally see new Canadians over there. They still are filling out their freaking immigration papers, but they're sitting in a hospital because either themselves or somebody in their family has been brought over. There was also a story about a man who ended up, he crossed the border illegally. This was last year. He crossed the border illegally, 2 days later checked himself into a hospital, and then it just so happened that he had stage 4 cancer. So it's putting Canadians to the back of the line in favor for these immigrants. At the same time, it's the Canadian taxpayer who is funding this. So these are all practical reasons. And even right now, with how many of these immigrants turn out to be Islamic, this is even causing even more danger. We have a number of extremist groups that are operating in Canada right now. This has even been brought up to Parliament, to the parliamentary committees. Nothing's being done about that. And then you also have the changing of demographics, which is pretty much irreversible here in Canada now. I think we've done enough damage there that you really won't be able to get away from that. Just like in America, Canada, white people will become a minority here. So here are all practical reasons as to why we need to have a conversation about reducing immigration, but you're immediately getting chalked up by Michelle Rempel in the Conservative Party as not having a place there because you're anti-immigrant. Rempel needs to be removed from the Conservative caucus, and fast. There are a lot of red Tories inside of the Conservatives. This is something that I've been talking about for a while, and I actually am beginning to think that it is some sort of infiltration effort by left-wingers in order to move the right-wing parties more towards the left. Rempel has proven herself time and time again. She has come out and made bullshit claims that are like, that could be, you could hear from left-wing feminists, whether that has to do with pay inequality or just about, oh, how hard it is to be a woman in politics. I get criticized. She doesn't even receive a fraction of the criticism that Justin Trudeau gets, but she still sits there and cries about it when people give her a hard time. I don't know whether this part's true, but I've also heard that she is actually the politician, the Canadian politician who has actually blocked the most people on Twitter, and she's blocked everybody for such small reasons. That she also lied when it came to the UN Global Compact for Migration. She said all sorts of things. Oh, it's just non-binding. It's not a big deal. And then like a month beforehand, she's starting to be like, oh, we really need to look into this. She's more or less supported the immigration numbers that Trudeau is bringing in. When it came to the asylum seekers, she wasn't going to have a hardline stance on the people who are crossing illegally. She wanted to close the loophole, but she wasn't going to deport any of the people who had crossed over to our country illegally and then claiming asylum status while carrying across brand new luggage, gold chains, the newest phones. My phone is 5, almost 6 years old. My smartphone. It's a Galaxy Samsung S5. So some of these people were crossing over with better phones, better shoes, better clothing than I have. But She didn't want to do any of that. She is one. Lisa Raitt is another. There was, I can't remember his first name, but there was that one MP who was running for the leadership race, Chong, who he was a conservative who wanted to put in a carbon tax. So you can see how there's a lot of red Tories that are inside of the, who are inside of the Conservative Party movement. But nothing is probably going to get done. She has been a hardliner for the she's been a hardline supporter for the Conservatives, and when I say that, I don't mean she's been hardline conservative. I mean that people significantly support her who support the Conservative Party. They like her a lot, and I don't understand why. You know, I'll admit that she kind of, for a little bit, she did kind of have my support a while back. But once I started actually paying closer attention to her, I broke off any support that I have for her, and I would gladly see her lose her riding in the 2019 election. I would prefer to see the Conservatives win over the Trudeau or any other party in here. The PPC don't have a fighting chance in hell in order to win. I think just like every other Canadian would be shocked if they could actually pull out to win the election in 2019. So the real only right-wing party that can stand up to Trudeau is the Conservatives. But I would gladly see Michelle Rempel lose her seat, but she won't because she's in Alberta and they are definitely going to vote Conservative. And as I understand it, she has actually been re-elected in her riding more than once, so she's probably not going to lose her seat. In fact, if the Conservatives win this upcoming election, she no doubt will become the immigration minister. There is no doubt in my mind. But she is just one of a few that need to be removed, and for other practical reasons too. I have something here I want to show you. Now, this actually was a tweet that was made by Maxime Bernier that didn't go over well with conservative supporters, but I think he's a very valid what he talked about. He says, I wonder what Michelle Rempel think of the story about the BC father who could be arrested for family violence if he referred to his daughter as a girl. Does he support free speech and parental rights? It seems pretty aligned with far-left transgender activism, because this is exactly what this person is here. This is Morgan Ogre. Ugly as fucking hell, but she ended up speaking at the Morgan Ogre Foundation. That ended up happening on Parliament Hill in the summer of 2018, I believe it was. And it didn't go over well with several people. I guess they probably thought it was bigoted in order to even bring that up. But this is a story that he's talking about is a very true story about a father who was taken to court. And it turns out that he is not allowed to refer to his little girl as his little girl, because his little girl was transitioning over to become a boy, or it's the other way around. But I'm pretty that it's a boy going over to become a girl. But he didn't want to use his child's preferred gender pronoun, and he actually got a court order saying he had to, or he could have his kid removed from him. I don't know if necessarily he could get arrested for that, maybe, but they did say that they could remove his child from his home over this. But here's even something else for many who don't know this. This story kind of made the rounds when it first came out, about a month ago, I think. March 22nd. Anti-discrimination organization wants to map offenders with hate atlas. So that sounds like a bad idea now. And actually, as Derek Rance put it, why don't we just give them a number? Sort of like making reference to the way that some prisoners, and I'm sure that's also a Holocaust reference about giving them a number. But who started this hate atlas? None other than the Morgan Ogre Foundation, who has issued a call for volunteers to help build the Canadian Atlas of Populism Extremism known as CAPE. This is the type of person that Michelle Rempel has aligned herself with. It's very clear. Also, this person, Morgan Ogre, is the one who just recently won, I believe, was $50,000 when they took a man to the, I believe it was the BC Human Rights Tribunal over calling Morgan a man. And this is the type of person that Michelle Rempel has warmed up to. So I have no love or support for Michelle Rempel. I think she is one of the worst people inside the Conservative caucus. Some of her things you could just go over and she could just switch the other side of the aisle, or I could give you statements by her without telling you who it is, just tell you it's a politician. I'm guaranteeing you would probably believe that she was a liberal. So no love, no support for Michelle Rempel, and she does more damage than good. I mean, there's some people are talking about the rise of Canadian populism that is happening. I don't believe it's happening. I don't believe that Andrew Scheer is the populist candidate that people try and paint him to be, and I think Maxime Bernier thinks he's more of a populist than he really is. I've been pretty transparent, I feel, as if my support in the whole right-wing civil war is that I supported Maxime Bernier's policies more than I support the Conservative Party, but I've become very disillusioned with them over time as I've kind of watched as he's gone on and on. I'm not really impressed. He's not who I thought he was going to be. And I don't believe that Andrew Scheer is the staunch defender of Canada that people on the Conservative Party side, has painted him to be. And I said before, you can probably go back and check out previous episodes where I ended up saying that Maxime Bernier was my last stand when it came to a politician that I trusted. I've been disappointed by him. I'm not going to support any politician anymore for this exact reason, because I've been let down by just about every single politician that I have put my faith in. I've been more than unimpressed with them. I mean, one thing about Maxime Bernier, which will tie into a video I'm going to be making coming up soon, one of the projects I've been working on while I've been off for the last couple weeks or so, is the banking system. Now, Maxime Bernier, go back 10 years, he was talking about the banking system. He was talking about the problems that we were having with the Bank of Canada. These are real problems that have to be brought up, but he doesn't talk about that anymore. And it is my understanding that it is not high on his priority list. Now, these are one of the serious issues that is facing us here in Canada with the way that the bank is operating, with the way that the government is operating when it comes to how they borrow money. But he stopped talking about that. I don't believe that Maxime Bernier is a liberal plant, like people said, although there are good points made when people connect him back to the Desmarais family, who are Laurentian elites, no doubt about it. But I don't believe that he was a plant inside of the Conservative Party in order to try and move it to the left, or take it over and then move it to the left. People like Lisa Rain and Michelle Rempel are doing enough of that all on their own, and there's a number more in there that are doing that well enough on their own without the help of Maxime Bernier. All right, let's move on. I'm done my ranting. Well, maybe for now. Anyway, so one of the last story I wanted to talk about today had to do with Sheila Copps. Now, Sheila Copps is the ex-deputy premier of Canada. That ended up, she was in that position from 1993 to 1996, I believe. That was over the course of the Jean Chrétien government. And since she retired, she's just been a staunch defender of. I should have said, yes, sorry. She was the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. I did say Deputy Premier, I'm pretty sure. She was the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, and she's now a staunch defender of the Liberal Party. Of course, she was part of the Liberal Party, but some of the things that she says, if you follow her Twitter account, holy shit, she is fucking crazy. And not in a good way. So, she took to Twitter, I believe it was just yesterday night. And this guy here on Twitter just about summarizes what ended up happening. Which one of you pranksters gave Sheila Copps a case of brandy and a Twitter account? That is about the most accurate description of what just ended up happening last night. Now, as I've said before, Sheila Copps has done a lot of crazy shit. But she ended up getting into a fight with Christine Raworth on Twitter. And what she accused Christine Raworth of is pretty disgusting, actually, to be perfectly honest. So, where is it? There we go. So this is where it started. So as you can see at the bottom here, Christine Raworth, she kind of goes in, who I'm pretty sure is like a left-wing feminist too. From some of the stuff she talked about, she says, "For the record, do you know who gets sexually harassed and abused? 1/3 of women and 1/6 of men." Now, I think this is, like, these numbers are actually bullshit. Not 1 in 3 women get sexually harassed throughout their time. This has actually been debunked before in the past, and not 1 in 6 men do. Yes, it happens to women more, and yes, it happens, and it's a terrible crime. But anyway, Sheila Copps ends up replying to that, who says, as Christine Raworth ends up saying, she says, "It's not a partisan issue, it's a human issue," sort of thing. So Sheila Copps says, "Who they support is irrelevant, but you gave multiple interviews saying that you had no political affiliation, even though your Facebook page was full of attacks against the Liberals. Kent Hare is a decent person, and what you did was political." Now, what she's making reference to is what ended up happening with Kent Hare, because Kent Hare was accused, I believe it was last year, of sexual harassment, and that's when he ended up stepping down from cabinet. Now, it was Christine Raworth who ended up making these accusations against Kent Hare. It was her that ended up getting sexually harassed by Kent Hare. So as we can see here, it's about Kent Hare. And even in this article from Global, there it is, Christine Raworth, an Alberta public servant, posted a thread on Twitter late Wednesday night following a stunning press conference in which former Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Patrick Brown preemptively denied allegations of sexual misconduct that would minutes later be revealed in a CTV News report. No, it actually didn't. I did a whole video about how that was bullshit, about what ended up happening to Patrick Brown. But I digress. What was ironic, too, about what Sheila Copps ended up doing is what she was doing in the morning of Friday and what she did in the evening of Friday. And this is summed up by Bad Jam. Actually, a great Twitter account. Go follow her. It says, "Sheila Copps Friday morning. Look at me. I stand up for women's right in the workplace. Sheila Copps Friday night. Unless you're a woman who accuses a liberal man of sexual harassment, then you're a goddamn liar who should be shamed, fired, and thrown in jail." So she ends up accusing Christine Raworth of lying about Kent Hare, and I've never really taken notice to Christine Raworth before, so I don't know about these whole attack ads that are made against the Liberals. It's possible because even someone like Warren Kinsella, who has been a long-time Liberal supporter and even been an advisor to the Liberal Party in the past, is against Justin Trudeau, so maybe they're the real centrists that still remain, Christine Raworth and Warren Kinsella, even though I disagree with Warren's politics. And in response, Christine ended up saying, "I spoke about sexual harassment deemed founded by a third-party investigator. You are attacking me and calling me a liar. This started because I asked to see the report. There is nothing political in what I did. What you are doing to me is absolutely political." And what she's making reference to about the report is the report that ended up getting withheld about what Kent Hare ended up doing. That was withheld, and I believe it was actually Kent Hare who withheld it. So, yeah. And again, third-party investigator deemed that her accusation were founded. So this has been what Sheila Copps has been doing lately. And even funnier than that, Sheila Copps accused another a man, of sexually assaulting and raping her. Again, coming from Bad Jam. This is even more disturbing. It's even more disturbing. Copps accused an MP of raping her and claimed she didn't report it then because she didn't feel safe doing so. Yet here she is 38 years later shaming other victims coming forward, all to protect the Liberal Party. So these are two people, her and Sheila Copps and Justin Trudeau and a lot of the other Liberals, who have been part of the whole #MeToo, #BelieveAllWomen movement. And yet here they are, willing to throw a young woman who has been proven that she was sexually harassed under the bus simply because she is accusing a liberal of it. So this is quite a disgusting move by Sheila Copps. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised for what really shouldn't be surprised for the other stuff that she's done. Again, if you paid attention to Sheila Copps's social media account, then you know what I'm talking about. But seriously, for everybody else, it's worth a scroll through to go through Sheila Copps' Twitter, because it is just golden, full of batshit crazy. But she has been a longtime liberal supporter, longtime member of the Liberal Caucus, longtime liberal defender, and she most definitely is one of those people that would throw a young girl like that under the bus simply because she didn't agree with her politically. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I'm going to try and get that video out before the end of Sunday, but I don't know. From the way it's looking, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it done, so I'll get it done as soon as possible. Keep your eyes out. It's going to be about the banking system and pretty much how the whole thing is a giant con. It's going to be worth a watch, so I highly recommend that when I put it out, I would recommend that you watch it. But then again, it's my video. I'm biased. Thank you all for joining me on Just My Stupid Opinion. I'm Adrian Lloyd.